Hi there everybody. On today's video I have this Mercedes A-Class. This is a 2014. I'm gonna be changing the front brake pads and discs, and I'm gonna start by opening the reservoir here for the brake fluid. So I'm just gonna take that cap off. This will allow any pressure to come back up here, because we're going to push the pistons back in order to put the new pads, which means when you push the pistons back, the fluid here comes back up. So if this is closed, you get some resistance, so better to take that off, and then you get the fluid just flows back out. Also, just in case, if this is full, sometimes people fill this up, and when you push the pistons back, the fluid can overflow a little bit, and then it drips onto the metal, which then is a little bit corrosive. So you could just wrap this round with a rag or something, just in case any fluid decides to come out. In this case I think it's going to be okay, but just for the purpose of the video I'll wrap that around there. If you're working outside, maybe you want to cover that as well, like so, so you don't get any dust or any dirt going in there. I'm working in the garage, so fairly much okay. Now I'm going to get the car up, and we need to remove the wheels in order to access the brake pads and discs. I'm going to be using pretty much a flathead screwdriver, this wrench here, or a pair of pliers, this ratchet here. This is a Worth ratchet. It's a extendable ratchet. It's really good. You can extend it by pushing this. we're gonna need this socket. This is a star type socket, E18. Also a 13mm socket, and T30 Torx. Also we're gonna need a power bar, so I'm using this power bar here. Okay, so let's get on with it. I've already removed the wheels, so I'm just gonna get the car up so I can work at my level, but you can also work down on the ground. It's just obviously I'm using the ramp so I can get it up a little bit. So these are the discs I'm gonna be using. Duratec, that's the part number. Obviously check with your supplier, make sure your vehicle matches the discs, and also these are the pads I'm using. Again, check with your supplier, because although these part numbers may match, if you have a slightly different model or different year or anything like that, it could be a slightly different part number. Okay, so I'm going to do this side. The other side will be exactly the same, only this side has got the sensor. But the sensor is not really that hard to deal with. Just get it out here, and you can leave it there or you can pull it out, whichever way. So just dispose of that, and we have a new one here. The pads came with 2 new bolts as well. So I used this wrench to hold this part here, and then I used the ratchet and the 13mm to undo this bolts. I've undone that one and that one, and before I take them out completely, I'm going to use my flathead here to push the piston back. Okay, so now I push the piston back as much as I can. We can remove these little bolts. And we can put our caliper to one side. I'm gonna hang it up here, just so it's away from this end. Now we can also inspect the condition of these rubbers here, make sure they're not torn, so there's no water going in there. Both of them. If there's any water going in them, then this gets seized and then the caliper doesn't work properly. Gonna get these pads off. Okay, so with the power bar we are going to undo these bolts. I've already undone them, but that's what I'm using the power bar for. Once you undo them, you can use your ratchet to take this out. So it's this one and this one up here. This car is quite low mileage, and that's why everything is in a fairly good and fairly clean condition. If your car is done a lot of miles, then it would be exposed to a lot more heat and dirt and everything else, so you might find that bolts and nuts are a little bit harder. Now we can take this mount off. What I will do with this mount, I will clean it with a wire brush. You can see it's quite dirty, so I will clean these areas here and up here. Okay, so with the T30 Torx, we're going to remove this screw here. I've already undone that screw, and it wasn't difficult to remove, but if your car has done a lot of miles, that could have seized in place, which then it can be very hard to remove, and you may need to drill it out. So just be careful when you remove this screw, the disc doesn't fall out on your foot, especially if you're using one hand. So once that is out, we can take this disc out. It's a heavy disc, the disc out, and then you can give this a quick wire brush as well. Nothing too crazy, and just put a little bit of copper grease around these areas here. Nothing too crazy, I'm just putting a little bit where the screw goes. If you have to change this in the future, you've done a lot of miles, a little bit of copper grease on that screw. If you didn't have to drill it out, it's come out nicely, then that will help. So, new disc. Got it lined up. Now we can get the little screw in. You mustn't tighten that up at all. Just put it in by hand, or I did it with a ratchet, but it's not tight at all. Just get this clean here. We can fit this back in. I already cleaned it and brushed it. So we can tighten this up now. So just using the power bar here to tighten this. And I've already done the top one. So just tighten those two with your power bar. Once that is tight, I'm going to put a little bit of copper grease on these edges. Just a little bit. This is where the pads slide. So now we slide the pads in. I already got one in. Just get them in there, push them in a little bit, and then they will go in there. Again, I'll just put a little bit of copper washer here. It's the area where the piston touches the pad, and here as well. Then we can put our caliper in there. Get your screws in there, or bolts. Okay, so I've tightened this one up. Now I just need to tighten this one. So I'm gonna hold it with this here, and then tighten, because that rotates if you try to tighten it. So just hold it with that and get that tight. This one is done, and we're almost finished. Now we can put our new sensor in as well. Push that in there, and then we'll push this one in here. And that's it. So these don't need to be over tightened either. They're quite soft, so once they're closed, once you close them, just it should be fine. And so we have all the bolts are secure, pads are in, sensors in. We pretty much finished here. Just gonna put the wheel on this end and the other end, and I'm gonna lower the car and we'll have a look at the brake fluid situation. Okay, so now we can have a look at our fluid situation here. This is really high. I think it's overflown a little bit actually, and I thought it was going to be okay. But you can see my rug is wet, so some fluid has come out. We want this to be at the max. There's a little max line there. That's where it needs to be. So I'm gonna have to drain a little bit of that out. But before I do anything, I'm gonna press the brake, because when we change paths and we mess around with pushing pistons back and stuff, we need to press the pedal and it will go all the way in, like there's no brakes. So, and then it's gonna get hard. Now we're good to drive and whatnot, but now we can check this. So the fluid has gone in a little bit. I'm gonna take this out. You can see some slicked out. So ideally, I can see the fluid is just above the max there. Ideally, I want to drain a little bit out of it, so I'm going to use a syringe and take some of that out. But otherwise, that's the job done. So I hope this video helps. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.